This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be here today with Michael Ottenweller, project manager and president emeritus of Ottenweller Company.
Correct.
And Terry Hanson, human resources manager at the company. Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you for being on.
Hi, Noah. Glad to be on.
Thanks, Noah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I guess the inspiration for you contacting me was when you read my dad's blog about where have all the men gone. That sort of struck the idea of what you guys have been seeing, trying to get a labor force together. Yeah.
And, I think there's a widespread impression that the younger generation has deserted manufacturing or might be a little slow to grow up. And we're Terry and the operation at Ottenweller Company is attacking that problem from a couple of different aspects, and thought we would talk about that. So
Perfect.
Your dad's article really piqued my interest, and I think we're doing some things that can that we thought would be positive to share with you and
Great.
talk about.
Perfect. Okay, just to get started, I want to know just a brief description of Ottenweller. What is this company? What is your company?
Well, Ottenweller Company was started by my grandfather, Ed Ottenweller, in about 1916 as a blacksmith shop in downtown Fort Wayne, Indiana. At the time, my grandfather was about 26 or 27 years old, and he had as a young man, he had gone off to Montana to be a cowboy and a blacksmith, and figured his chances of finding someone to marry were better back home than they were in Montana.
In the hot spot of Fort Wayne.
Yeah, exactly. It was Bozeman, Montana. Bozeman, Montana was not the place to meet your bride.
Oh, that's so funny. The last guy I interviewed was from Bozeman, Montana. He's a machinist in Bozeman, Montana. It's like the fastest growing city in the country now.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Coincidental.
But no, my grandfather came back, and he actually was a son of a blacksmith as well. My great grandfather was a blacksmith. But my grandfather started the company, and he ran the operation through the transition from horse and buggy into automotive, and he oversaw that era and into World War II. And after World War II, my dad, who was a General Electric engineer, left GE and went to work with my grandfather, and then my dad ran the company.
So what were they making?
At General Electric in Fort Wayne?
No, what was Ottenweller making?
Ottenweller Company at that time, through World War II, was making truck parts for International Harvester, who had a truck plant in Fort Wayne. And that was part of the war effort. And they did work for General Electric, who was making specialty motors at that point in time for military applications. But after World War II, we focused on a few main things. Construction was very strong, so we were aligned with some mechanical contractors in the area and supplied fabricated parts to them. We did work for International Harvester after the war and continued to do so until the late 1990s, actually. And then because the travel trailer and the RV industry was really getting started in the 50s, we began putting trailer hitches on cars and trucks and doing that type of thing. We no longer do that, but that was really something that I participated in as a teenager, working on those vehicles to install wiring harnesses and that type of thing. So, yeah, we were well known in Fort Wayne for putting trailer hitches on people's cars that they would use then to go travel the country with.
Wow. Wow. So since 1916, over 100 years. So, family business, a lot of family businesses interested in this podcast, people listening. So you are the third generation. There's a fourth generation involved now.
Correct. My son, David Ottenweller, is company president now. And then my nephew, my sister's son, my sister's been in the business with me since the early 1980s. And her son is now vice president, Kevin Dwyer, of the company.
And how old are they?
David is 42 and Kevin is 40.
Wow. I'm 42. Wow. Interesting. You have 11 siblings, yes? Or 10 siblings.
Yeah, there were 11 of us in our family. 5 brothers, 5 sisters. I was number 6 out of the 11. A lot of my siblings are professional people, doctors, lawyers, school teachers, college professors, that type of thing. I was the one who was most interested in the blacksmith shop, the mechanical end of things. And, I went to Purdue in mechanical engineering and finished an associate's degree at the Fort Wayne campus.
You'd say though you weren't big on school, right?
I was not a great student in high school and college, and not for lack of smarts, more for lack of direction. And I think the way I learned was more hands-on, getting in and taking things apart and seeing how they worked, and doing my problem solving in that arena.
It's so interesting though that with so many other people in the family, you and only 2 other siblings went into the business, and I would have expected, one of the first 5. Did any of the first 5 at least try the business?
Not really no. I mean, high school.
Did your dad try to discourage it?
No, my mother, who was really the driving force for education in the family, really pushed all of us to do well in school and to go to college and to finish. My mother, truthfully, after having 11 children, went back to college, finished her degree when she was 56.
Wow.
Became a school guidance counselor and worked until she was 73 years old as a guidance counselor at one of the local county high schools.
This is your mother, you said?
This is my mother. So my mother was very big on education, and she really pushed us kids to make sure that we stayed with it, with education. So I was a little bit of an outlier out of the group, but that I think that gave me an appreciation for perhaps some of these younger people who are coming out of high school and are not quite sure what they want to do yet, but aren't done learning. And that was certainly the case with me. I continued.
But you, in addition, though, to being like a hands-on learner and being into the engineering, I mean, it sounds like you were business oriented as well,
And I think that's where the strength of having a couple siblings in the business with me really pays off. So, I always was the one in the business that figured out how to make the parts, how to get the correct machinery to make the parts, how to lay out the shop, how to do how to read the blueprints and do that end of it. My sister, who was a graduate of IU, she was the one who took care of the office and the money and that type of thing, the accounting end of it. And then youngest brother in the family, Gary, he took care of sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. So we each had our own very distinct areas of the business that we took.
And your father was still, he was the president. He was in charge at the beginning.
Yeah, my father exited the business in 1985, and that's when my youngest brother came into the business. So at that point in time, he saw that we were moving the business way beyond what he was interested in doing with new equipment and dipping our toe in the CNC world and that type of thing. And he was very content to step away.
Your father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. So how did you guys decide for you to become the one in charge? I mean, you might have, did you guys have equal share of the company?
So, I had the benefit of being a birth order coming
right.
before my sister and my youngest brother. So I was in the business much longer than either one of those two had. My dad, because I was in early in the business, felt I should have the majority share of the business. And so that's how we started out. But as you know,
did you have to buy him out, or did you just did you just inherit
it? We did buy him out. It was very much a handshake. We did have a written agreement, but the basis of the agreement really was we would keep him in a paycheck until he didn't need a paycheck any longer. And so there was a lot of trust involved on my father's part that we could do what we were trying to do by growing the business and modernizing it. And I think for family businesses to sustain themselves through the generation, the trust factor is a big, big deal, because if you do it solely based on financial returns and wherewithal, it's very, very difficult to do unless the business is making significant returns.
Okay, so what are you saying then as far as working on trust?
We, when my father exited, we had a very basic agreement with him to keep him in a paycheck as he aged, and we did that, and everything turned out very, very well for everybody. And that became the basis of the agreement between moving from the third to the fourth generation, that there had to be some delayed gratification, delayed payment for third generation, while the fourth generation really dug in and was starting to remake the business yet again.
So if you could just walk me through a little bit what that means, though, like when you're quote unquote buying each other out, and there's delayed gratification and it's on the honor system. Can you specify that a little bit, how that works?
Well, without getting into any of the gory details, I think it means that, for my sister and I, who have children in the business, that we were okay with waiting to get some of our payout for our stock somewhere down the road. Okay. And because we had children in the business, a key component was that we did some gifting of some of that stock to the children. So that the business was not overly burdened with a large amount of debt. Really not a good strategy to try and pass the business down to the next generation and saddle them with a insurmountable amount of debt. And so we didn't want that to happen.
What do you do about the other kids, though? Did you have to like pay them out, or?
Yeah, other than my youngest brother, none of the other siblings had any interest in the business.
Wait, are all your kids then in the business, or no?
No, I have two sons, two daughters. I have a son who, my oldest son, runs his own company, which is a construction business. And
Right. So how do you do it where like, you're in essence sort of giving a piece of the business to one son? Do you feel like obligation to sort of compensate the other family member?
yeah, there's a little. We've managed that within the family.
Okay, maybe I'm getting too personal, but
Yeah, where we feel it's equitable. I don't think any of certainly none of my children feel as though they've been cut out of any.
Right, but I mean, for instance, with you and having so many siblings, I'm just curious how that would work.
Oh, again, most of my siblings are very successful in their own right.
Yeah.
When we first got started, we literally, when I came into the business, we literally were in the same blacksmith shop that my grandfather and my dad had operated out of. The blacksmith shop at that point in time was nearly 100 years old. It was.
So you weren't like some bohem with you weren't. It wasn't like
this. No, we were not. This was not a big operation. This was 10, 12, 15 people at the most.
And now how many people do you have? 200?
At this point in time, we have almost 200 people.
Very impressive.
Wayne plant and a plant in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Yeah.
Interesting. And would you say that your growing up with so many siblings has helped you in working together with family members, shaped who you are, sort of?
I think so. I think in a big family, there's just an expectation that everybody chips in and does their part. Certainly, in our family, the older kids help to take care of the younger kids. And that was true even through me and, helping to take care of my younger siblings. So there was an expectation that you all had to do your part, and that nobody was special, I should say. So I think in a big family, I think there's a dynamic of you have to figure out how to get along, and you have to learn how to give a little bit.
Interesting. It's interesting you'd say that. I mean, you hear about other families and succession, and there's bitterness, there's complication, even I know, like our family business, it can get complicated.
Yeah.
So it's very impressive. Do you have any advice for somebody with a family business and who has other generations or siblings or whatever to make it work?
We did engage with a family business counselor for a couple of years as we were working through some of our discussions, and that was helpful. We had the benefit of having a very good senior level business consultant advisor who helped us with crafting what the financial structure could look like. And then we had a good legal team that helped us write some of the agreements. And but I think the most important thing is to have good, positive discussions and try and leave the emotions out of it, and try to work towards a common goal.
Yeah. Well, emotions and family, they just go hand in hand.
Absolutely, they do. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
What's been one of the high points of your career? You've been in this business, 50 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as your career, or what you've seen how you've seen the company change?
Seeing as I was always the technical guy, I am just kind of wowed by how the technology has changed since I came into the business. When I was at Purdue, we were still working on all manual machines.
What kind of machines are you guys using? So for reference for people.
At this point in time, we have three 10 kilowatt fiber lasers. We have CNC press brakes. We have large horizontal boring mills. We have bridge mills. We have a number of Haas equipment in terms of VMCs and lathes.
Mm-hmm.
We employ many robotic welding cells. We do painting. We do, in addition to the painting, we do assembly. So we make complete modules for our customers and ship them to their factories so that they can just bolt the modules onto a tractor frame and hook up the wiring harnesses, and they're ready to go.
Right. And it's construction, it's agriculture.
Right. Construction, agriculture, some medical, but the bulk of our work goes into the construction equipment industry.
Interesting. Terry, it seems like you're very active as the human resources person at the company. Everybody, the topic everybody can just always talks about is, my one problem is how to find skilled people. If only I had more people, I could buy more machines. And it's interesting. You're in Fort Wayne. It's a small place, but at the same time, clearly, you guys are finding a good pipeline of people. Tell me, what are you guys doing to keep a good staff, a good workforce?
Well, I've first of all, I've got a background in not only government but in organizing. I had worked in political campaigns before, worked in Barack Obama's campaigns in 2007. And
what were you doing in his campaign?
I was in first I was in correspondence. I had been an intern first in the Senate office, and then I had worked in both his and Senator Durbin's offices. And then that's where I was when he announced he was running for president in February of 2007. And it was sort of a natural fit for me to move on over to headquarters and work in the correspondence office. But we pretty quickly, liquidated the headquarters to get everybody out into the field. So I was doing field organizing in Iowa on the campaign. I just moved all across the country and was just recruiting, volunteers and recruiting new voters to either vote or caucus, on behalf of Barack Obama. And
so you're a mobilizer.
Yeah. So I did a lot of that, and all across the country, from Iowa to Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, sort of following the campaign trail all the way through back to Colorado, and then finally back to Chicago, and then eventually to DC. And my wife had talked me into moving out to the Fort Wayne area.
She's from there?
She's from here, yeah. Oh. And so she...
You must really love... No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? I said that. Michael, didn't I say that in my first interview with you? I said,
yes.
You said, why are you moving out here? I said, you know what? To be honest with you may all laugh here, but it was for love. But I just brought that spirit with me of organizing out here, and I really just embraced the challenge. We've got a great group out, and for me, it was the big piece was where I was going to land.
Yeah, what made you, and how did you end up at Ottenweller?
Well, I was back in Chicago after serving in the Obama administration out of the Presidential Personnel Office for years, and for a period of time as White House liaison to the Department of Labor.
So you were hiring people for Obama's staff.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
And then I had moved back to Chicago and opened up a little family business with my brother-in-law and sister. Opened up a little neighborhood bar, which is something that we have in the sort of family lineage.
What's it called? Where is it?
So we've got two. The old family bar has been around forever. It's on Fullerton and Rockwell. It's called the Bob Inn, that my grandparents started after World War II. Now my Uncle Jimmy and Aunt Ann have been running it for many years, pretty much through most of my life. And then we opened up one at Montrose near Kedzie. It's actually Montrose and Troy, and it's called Templestowe Pub. So a little neighborhood bar, and we just, it was something, that bucket list thing that we wanted to do. And
was that a lucrative business?
It was, it was okay. We sort of struggled through the COVID era, but by that time I was out of it and had already moved out here to Fort Wayne, but it's still in the family and it survived.
All right. So another family business.
Full credit to my sister for keeping it alive and doing, making it survive through the COVID era. Long story short, I met who would become my wife while I was there, and running that operation. And we started taking some trips out to Fort Wayne. I had a mutual friend of Kevin Dwyer, who's in the ownership group here. And I didn't know this, but friend in Chicago who works in real estate, he, I was telling him, you know what, we're looking at possibly moving to Fort Wayne. And he said, I know somebody who lives in Fort Wayne. And, Kevin had coincidentally gone to the Kellogg School of Management, where I had worked for a period of time at Northwestern. And so we had a lot of things in common. We got connected. I came out here and I took a tour, walked around the shop, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the organization and these people. I met Michael, just after I had met Kevin. And, then I met Nancy, later Gary, met David, and we all just started talking after a couple of interview rounds. I said, yeah, this is the place for me. They agreed. And ever since then, I've been trying to do my best to recruit new people, retain our good talent. Mm-hmm. That's sort of leads into your question.
So what were they doing before you got there, before you came and saved their ass?
Well, I would say I saved it. I mean, it's been we've had our struggles here through the COVID era and everything. And I think the company's just had an excellent reputation for, now 107 years. By that point, it was already 102. So they were doing a lot of things right, which was, they had talent on the HR side. Joyce had run the HR operation here and was just a great trusted individual and had done some of the recruiting and all those types of things. And, I inherited her operation here and took in everything that she had to tell me about the local community and about how these, what makes a lot of the people in the shop floor here tick. And then I just, went to work. I started by getting to know everybody in the floor here. I had individual half-hour meetings with absolutely everybody on staff, just to get an idea of who everybody was and, what their sports teams were, what their interests were, what brought them to work in machining and welding, manufacturing. And so I use that as a sort of standard baseline to build on the retention efforts, and also to give me a good window into the types of things that I was going to be looking for out there.
So what is the best way to retain people?
I think you got to treat the whole operation like it is a garden that needs to be tended every day. One of the big keys is in answering folks' desires for their own growth and development. I think that people think that it's just, the pay raise thing. That's sort of a temporary fix that changes from 1 year to the next. Of course, we do those things, but growth and development on the training side, and then maintaining a company culture where people feel heard, people feel connected. It's part of the reason why I wanted to work here, because we know everybody's names, even though we're at about 200 staff members. We do the company picnic thing, and we get out there and we have local company events and things like that.
How could you tell so quickly that it was a kind of culture that
I can tell quickly by walking around, by meeting Michael, meeting the family here, Kevin, and my early conversations with him, and then just touring the shop floor, walking around, seeing how individuals interacted with Kevin on my opening tour, that he knew their name. He was able to walk through and say, "How you doing, Roy?" And talk about the weekend and things like that. And it felt like an extension of the Ottenweller family company to me. And I said, you know what, I want to give this thing, I want to give this thing a shot. So,
and Noah, could I step in on this too, on the retention?
You can come in anytime you want.
On the retention thing, I think it's important in a business our size to keep your organization as flat as you possibly can. Not have a lot of different levels of management. And Terry's exactly right. Very important that the family members are out on the shop floor on a daily basis. Hi, how are you? How's it going? What's going on? When there's problems in an area, I think our responsibility out on the plant floor is to remove as many roadblocks as people have as you can to people being successful in their work life every single day. And, a lot of these roadblocks are not things that they create for themselves. It's things that the organization or, the way a part is engineered might create a lot of frustration, a lot of problems for people. Management needs to remove that frustration and to see what gift every single person has that they can give to the organization, and then to recognize them for that.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to work saying, gee, I hope I do a crappy job today.
Right.
Everybody comes to work and they I need to get this done. I need to do my best, and I need to feel good about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And successful management means that you have to clear away the roadblocks so that people can get to that point with their jobs.
How do you recognize people? How do you show them recognition?
We've got a number of different ways that we do it, but I think the thing that's most important is to, praise in public. If somebody's doing a great job on something, put out an email to the entire organization. So-and-so helped us knock down this problem today. They had an idea. We have a piece of homegrown software that we use that allows people to put in continuous improvement ideas. And, they're evaluated on a regular basis. And if they're implemented based on, how well they do, we reward them financially, and we reward them with recognition in front of their peers. And, I would say the recognition in front of their peers is much more important than the monetary. Monetary is good too. Would you agree, Terry?
I would agree there, Michael. And I also add that, a lot of people come into this line of work, into machining and engineering and welding, because they are creative. They want to work with their hands. And so sure, in a production environment, we've got those positions for those individuals who can come in, be in some repeat production for a period of time. But I think it's incumbent upon us, and this is one of the things that we try to do, is get folks working on new things. We've got a lot of new products coming our way, and a lot of sample work out there has brought in a lot of new work from existing customers and new customers, and making sure that we're plugging in these minds and these hands on working on these things and doing some rotations, getting our cross training program fed and keeping people engaged. And I think that we find that those individuals who just want to, punch the clock for the paycheck, as opposed to those people who really, want to be challenged. They're few and far between. The people who want to work with their hands, they want to be challenged, are the vast majority. So I think
I agree with that, Terry. I
yeah.
I think almost to a person in our organization, they like it when you bring a challenge to them and say, we got a problem here, I need some help figuring this out.
Yeah.
And, working with them as a coworker rather than, boss employee type relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The colleague, the pat on the back, the acknowledgments and those things, but they also want to feel connected. And when you've got,
Right.
The ownership group, executive management, and others who are directly involved out there, I think that helps to a great deal. And so, yeah, I mean, and I was going to say, Noah, one of the things that I like to, we all have challenges. Certainly in HR, we deal with all sorts of different problems all the time. Wherever you're going to go, people are going to have their issues, and they come, to HR to manage them inside of work, outside of work, what have you. And I get some satisfaction out of making sure that I've had an employee that feels that they've been heard, and that I have had some incremental degree of change, positive change for whatever it is that was the problem with them. But in particular, I feel like at the end of my day, I always have this time where I take a thought about, all right, who did I help today? And if I didn't do enough, what can I do tomorrow to make sure I get that list down, to make sure that I'm checking those boxes on those people. And I think having those touches makes a difference on the retention side.
Well, it sounds like it gives you tremendous purpose as well.
Yeah, it does.
So one of the things you're doing a lot of is going to there's some decent trade schools in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, we've got the community colleges in the area, Ivy Tech in particular, where we have very good programs, new facilities in the Fort Wayne Ivy Tech branch for machining and welding, where we've got really good deep roots with that community college. We've had people on staff here who have worked there or currently, work there either part-time as teachers, welding instructors and whatnot, giving us a window into what talent looks like over there. And it's true, those classes have not been overwhelmed, with admissions, with students interested in that. But that just makes the challenge for us to be able to identify, why, and to find out how we can, work with community partners here to realize or to let students know what opportunities look like in a place like this. So yes, we're engaging with the high schools. I've had many high school visits where we're just, going into whether or not they have, welding programs at the high school. We're booking visits in there and then scheduling tours of our shop here to just let students, parents know, hey, we're here.
And then you have an internship program, or how does that work?
So we traditionally have internships in welding, machining, engineering, sort of the natural bridge from where the schools have their programs, so that students can have some credit essentially, and then also be paid. And so our internships are all paid here. So we do those things. I just interviewed a candidate today who's going to be with us full time for the summer, and we're billing this as an internship because he could receive sort of on the job training credit through the college, and this is great, because it gives him this experience where he's directly working on products and employing some of the skills that he's learned. And he's, we're just waiting for him to turn 18 on Wednesday, and we could officially hire him.
What's a typical wage there?
Well, we don't hire anybody here for under $17 an hour, which in this area is pretty good for starting wage.
That is pretty good, I think, for Fort Wayne. Yeah.
And and it just climbs up from there. Anybody who enters the shop, if you have some experience, obviously you're coming in at a higher wage, and it all depends on what skill level you bring in. And we do those assessments, Noah, when somebody comes on in and they interview. I'll literally link them up with one of our certified welding inspectors out there, or one of the more seasoned, top level fabricators.
So when somebody comes in, they've gotten some training though already, or usually?
Not usually these days. We're bringing a lot of people who have limited to no experience. It's great if somebody does have some experience, but our organization is equipped to be able to assess and train and develop on welding and machining in all of our divisions, actually.
But I mean, so I guess my question is, you like hiring people from the trade school.
Yeah.
How much if a kid goes to the trade school and comes in, does it mean just they have a head start? Is that kind of?
Yeah, they've got a head start for sure. Yeah, they've got some exposure to blueprints already. They've utilized inspection tools. They have a fundamental understanding of what the machines are or how to operate a welder. They may have been exposed a little bit to programming on the machining side, and those things only help because then they could communicate right off the bat. I mean, they'll complete a training checklist more quickly than others will. Typically we want the first training checklist completed within 3 weeks. Anybody coming out of those schools, they're done within a handful of days usually.
Got you.
But on the other hand, Terry, it's really important that we nurture and care for these young people when they first hit the shop floor, and give them, they're pretty green in terms really of their overall skills. Yeah. And it's really important that we have a mentor with them, somebody to help them when they bump up against a problem. We have in-house training programs in welding, machining, even engineering that we work with young people on. So when they come in, we've got to take good care of them.
Yeah.
We got to make sure they're safe. Number one, that's our first priority, and then number two, we need to make sure that we're giving them the technical knowledge and backup that they need to do their job.
One thing I'm very interested in, and we talked about this the other day, is hiring people with experience from other jobs. There's this book I find very interesting called Range, and it's about how when people cross-train from one job to the other, they come in and it really helps them to excel in this other new occupation. What have you experienced with that? So you've hired people from other industries, yeah?
Oh yeah.
A good chunk of our workforce has come from other industries.
Does that work well, or is it kind of like weird because they're trying to figure out the culture, or some of both?
Some of both. I mean, and sometimes it works out very well. And sometimes we're just giving somebody an opportunity and they realize, in their first 90 days or first 6 months, and maybe this isn't for me. In fact, I've, seen both of those scenarios within the last 6 months here. And so sometimes, just like hiring anybody, it is a little bit of a roll of the dice. We try to check as many boxes as we can in the door. We've got a basic, reading comprehension assessment when they come in, a basic multiple choice math assessment when they come in. And then, if they check those boxes and, the references are good. For instance, we hired a gentleman who was a line cook at a couple of the restaurants around here, and he just had excellent references. The types of references that we're saying, if it doesn't work out there, you tell him to come right back here, but he wanted to work with his hands. He wanted to work in machining and in manufacturing. So we gave him an opportunity, and that was in late 2017. Now he's our team lead over the cutting division, which includes the plasmas and these fiber optic lasers that Michael was talking about.
Yeah.
And he's just doing a fantastic job. Just this week, I had an individual who I recruited from one of the big hardware stores around here. He wasn't entirely satisfied with his job. He had worked in the shipping, just moving products around on with the dolly and whatnot. And I just saw how he was interacting with the staff there, and he helped me load a freezer into the back of my family's van. And I just started telling him, I said, what do you do? What, do you like your job? And he just said, no, I don't. And so, I just sparked a conversation. I said, why don't you come in and take a tour with us? I'll show you what we got going on over here. I like the way that you were interacting with your colleagues there. And I just had a positive, gut feeling about the guy, because I said, come on and give us a tour. Well, he started this last Monday over here in our laser area. He had not worked in manufacturing before. I brought him in just a couple hours ago, Noah, here, and we do our end of week 1 check-in, where we have about 25 questions, where we just go through, hey, all the safety questions, where to go in case there's a in case there's an evacuation, or do you know where to locate your nearest fire extinguisher, or those types of things, all the safety questions. But we also ask, is there anything that you wanted to achieve in your opening week here that you haven't done, and how can we help you to achieve those types of questions that make sure that they feel engaged and they feel.
What do people say when you ask them that?
It's in this instance, it was he really didn't have any problems. He said, I'm liking the folks that I work with. I feel like I can approach anybody, and they're patient and they're taking their time. Sometimes you hear questions about, I've got trouble getting into this account or that account. Those are pretty typical. And then sometimes you say, well, I'll hear, well, the job is much more physical than I thought it would be. And then that, we steer that conversation a couple of different ways.
How flexible are your hours? Are they just very traditional, 10-hour days?
I would say, although, we have had to be more flexible here lately for certain family situations and childcare issues. And I think every business has had to do that. They've had to find ways to be a little more flexible.
Well, and the standard is changing.
And it is. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Just a few other questions. I often like to ask people, when they think of happiness, what do they think of? So why don't you start, Terry, and then we'll go to you, Michael.
You know what? I've often had this thought. Happiness to me is an emotion like sadness. You can feel happy one day, you can feel sad another day. And I feel like I prefer to center around contentment, and that issue that I had talked about earlier, the things that bring me satisfaction and contentment tend to be in how it is that I've affected other people's lives.
And I'm going to answer quickly. My iPad is on 10% battery, Noah. So
Perfect.
Does that make you content?
No, that makes me a little.
We'll go the
actually,
distance.
It's going to give me a hard out here. Anyhow.
Yeah, just go until we finish or it's done. That's fine.
Yeah, there we go.
Flame out.
Happiness, I think, is Terry says contentment, but feeling that you are part of society, that you're contributing to society, and that you matter to other people. And I think that's what drives happiness in people and contentment in people, that they are contributing to the greater good in society and that they're respected by their peers.
Wow. Very good. Do either of you have anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world? This is your chance. And this is broadcast everywhere.
Oh,
I would say, you know what, people should check out Fort Wayne. I've been pleasantly surprised here.
Yeah,
Being somebody who's lived in Chicago and DC, and did some time in Australia and all over the place.
Why should they check out Fort Wayne besides Ottenweiler, of course?
Well, yeah, you got to take a tour if you come here, of course, no brainer. But there's just a lot of investment, and from my background, a lot of just progressive minds, and that was sort of refreshing to me. I mean, I didn't know Indiana very well until I started spending a lot of time here, and just like the folks in ownership here, found a lot of like-minded, interesting, smart people here. Downtown, there's a revitalization.
I like how you're so open-minded, Terry. I mean, you're an urban kid. You're from Chicago. You've lived everywhere, worked for Obama. Now you're moved to Fort Wayne.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
why not? And I really appreciate that. I think it's impressive.
And we are really, really happy that Terry is living in Fort Wayne. And we thank his wife, Mallory, for that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we've been nesting. We've got 3 kids now. So a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old. So we've been so we've been busy with that. And also, I can't understate that the property values in Fort Wayne compared to the 44th ward of Chicago are quite different. You can get a mansion here. Yeah.
What about you? Before your iPad runs out of energy, what do you have to say?
No, I think, as I'm getting older in life, I'm analyzing this yin and yang of competition versus collaboration. And from my perspective, it looks to me like collaboration produces far better results than competition, even though I think competition, you should do a whole podcast on that, a
season about competition and collaboration.
Competition versus collaboration.
Interesting. Who would you suggest I interview?
Michael and I all come back.
Tom Friedman.
Tom Friedman.
Yeah. So, but no, I think in my parting thoughts are, I've also come to learn that everybody's got a gift to give. It's really really important for employers to find what that gift is and get people to a place where they can succeed and show that gift.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Okay. No,
Thank
great
you.
talking with you.